Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Oneganos Season 3, Episode 3 of Oneganos Let's Talk Water. And I'm your host, Makasa Looking Horse. Sego Seguego, Makasha Gets, Kanekahaga Nico Honjode, Wakatuhuni, Oshwigan Nidawageno. I'm your host, Makasha Looking Horse, and I'm a McMaster student. And we are excited to have Louise and Grandma and Mary and on our show today. So on today's episode, we're going to be exploring powerful women and water. We all know that we need water to survive, and what else comes with it. How do we keep water safe for generations to come? And what does matrilineality have to do with it? Stay tuned to find out. So our first guest here is Louise McDonald, Wagela Gutste. I hope I said that right. Louise McDonald Hearn is a condoled Bear Clan mother from Mohawk Nation Council. She is a trusted advisor for families and community youth and works closely with them in their homes and schools. She bestows traditional names in the Longhouse and provides spiritual counsel for those seeking support. Through her work as a matrilineal leader and as a mother, she is a founding member of Ganungwe Council, a circle of Mohawk women working to reconstruct the power of their origins through education, empowerment, and trauma-informed approaches. Louise champions the philosophy of Ganesasaya, mother law, a natural law that binds Okwehue or Indigenous Kinship Society. She is also a conductor of the Moon Lodge Society, convening women and girls on monthly basis in the line with full moon cycle. Louise is the principal and organizer and leader of Oholoko Under the Husk, a traditional rites of passage ceremony for Mohawk youth. Since 2005, she has guided hundreds of communities and families and volunteers through self-reflection, Haudenosaunee culture, instruction, and ceremony. Currently a spirit-aligned legacy leader, Louise has presented at the United Nations Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues and lectures regularly at universities throughout Canada and the United States on Haudenosaunee philosophies and self-determination regarding women. Affectionately known as Mama Bear, the Distinguished Scholar in Indigenous Learning at McMaster University Institute for Innovation and Excellence in Teaching and Learning. Hi, Louise, and Yawa for coming to our show.
Well, Stago, glad to be here.
No problem. We're so happy to hear from you, and so is our audience. So I think that we're going to start off with our first question, and that is, in a Hologo rites of passage, we talk about our roles and responsibilities as Haudenosaunee. But for people who didn't go through a Hologo, could you share some women's roles and responsibilities to water?
Well, I think what sets everything in motion for women in water is our own creation story. And we know that Ojibwe, our sacred sky woman, fell through a celestial opening in the sky world, and she came here and found entire planet of just water. And so it was through her essence and through her own self-determination, I guess, and probably a whole lot of stubbornness, decided that, you know, she had to make a new world for herself, and she chose the water. And so right from the get-go, you know, when she arrives here, she's already a vessel of water because she's pregnant, and she brings with her quite powerfully the element of water and marries it with the elements of water here on earth. So right from the get-go, you know, the blueprint is already set that women are vested in water, and that women are the vessels for water. So, you know, when we springboard from that kind of creation story, then the rest of it just falls into place, and it's a continual I guess drip of water that just goes through the generations. And I guess that's also the wellspring of knowledge, or the headwaters of knowledge, that, or I should say wisdom, where women are the lead when it comes to being wise and holders of knowledge, because of what was put into motion in the beginning in our creation story, is that women are in charge. At the end of the day, they're in charge. So whether it's in birth or it's in death, women stand at the door of both birth and death. So we usher in life, and we can also usher out death. So we have a great responsibility, and everything that we do in life, as you already know, life can't exist without water. Our babies can't be born if our bodies didn't hold water. So it's primordial, it's primitive, it's absolute, it's part of the permanence and the basic building blocks to life. And so women are the caregivers and caretakers of that. So for young women who, or even older women in general, who haven't gone through Ohologo, that's the kind of wisdom they need to impart on themselves to realize that they're the authority, and also the responsibility. So they really have to thread lightly, and also always be careful about how precious water is in your body and on the earth. And for me, it's like, it's basic. It's probably one of the first things that, you know, when a baby is born into this world, the baby is washed with water, and it gets pulled from a vessel of water from the womb in the amniotic sac. So it's just basic primary rules. That's the way life is. but we take it for granted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I went through Ohologo with Louise, and when she invited me out there in Akwesasne, so I attended for 2 years, and I remember water being a very like respectful and cleansing entity, and I remember very like vividly of like the teaching when of also like men, of like when young men are, when they go like fasting, I think it was, and they're supposed to go into the water, and you told them to go into the water very gently and very respectfully because it's a woman entity, and that's how we should be treating women, with respect and with gentleness, and like very carefully, and
Mm-hmm.
also very loving. And so like when they get into the water, like not to jump into it like cannonball, but very like slowly, um and and respectfully, I think. And I remember that very vividly um when we were like sending the males off to their uncles. So yeah, for you who don't know what a hologo is, um maybe, I don't know if you want to like speak on that a little bit, but it's a 4-year commitment. And then you're also supposed to go solo for the other years after you graduate. But mainly it's a 4-year commitment, of a basically a ceremony where you learn by Louise, by your elders, by your aunties, by uncles, and you're guided for 4 years through your adolescence, and you're transitioning into a woman or a man into adulthood, basically. And so you have all this help, and I think that's what is really powerful about Ohologo, is all of the community caring for one another, and sister and brothership that is also goes on there. But I think like the community and the uncles and aunties all caring for our youth to have a good future, and so that they grow up and to be a good adult is really powerful. And it's what a lot of our communities are missing, I think, because we don't really have that kind of structure. And um, and yeah, it's definitely something that we can reinforce. But yeah, so
Yeah.
like, what are some steps that young women and can take to stand in our power and elevate mother law?
Hmm. Well, first of all, I just like that good reflection that you had on Ohologo, and I remember you being here. And yeah, it is a ritual of transition. It helps youth transition through adolescence to become young adults, and that's primary. Um, how boys should treat women is how we should also treat water. And it's vital that we do not take for granted each other's powers. But a young boy has to jump into the river 3 times on his 30-year fast. And the reason for that, he's got to go in stealth like, and he can't disrupt the water. And he's got to be very gentle because, as beautiful as the river can be, it's also powerful and it can take your life. And we lose more of our young men in drownings per year than our young women. So that's why we give that teaching to our young men to respect the river and to respect women, because it definitely can take you out of this life very quickly. And as far as mother law, I think one of the things that we need to establish is, what is that? What is mother law? And in Ganyat Geha, when we translate that to say mother, you would say Gatni Stansla motherhood, Agenistaha, my mother. Um, so if you break that word down, that Agenistaha, I guess that sta is related to strength, and it says that she is my strength, and she's everywhere. She's all over. Agenistaha, Gatnistansala. So no matter where you go, where you turn, you can't hide because your mother's always there. If she's not in your head, she's right next to you. And there's a very profound um, correlation between Earth Mother and women. And so we're very tightly woven in that. And because, again, in our creation story, that Ojijizo, she created the earth when she danced on it and spread that earth. So it's feminine in its force. And that is the pillars to the rule of law that I call it. And so it's founded on precedence, which means what came first? The woman came first. It's quite opposite of the Christian Adam and Eve story, where a woman is the handmaid, the helpmate of man, and came from his rib. And our story is just the opposite. Man came from the woman. And even our Sugwayat Diesel, the one that we all pray to, is really one of her sons. He's one of the male twins, or grandsons, I should say, because when she got here, she gave birth to a daughter who in turn gave birth to the male twins. So even the Sugwayat Dizo, our male god that we pray so hard to each and every day, he's still accountable to the mother. So for me, that's what mother law is. It's the permanence. It's her permanence in that she is the provider, the protector, and she's the rule of law. So that's what mother law is. As we know, everything that's natural or natural law, the sun rises, the grass grows, the river flows. Those are all Mother Nature at work. And so that's what mother law is. So in order for a woman, a young woman, to stand in her power with mother law, she's got to know who the hell she is.
Mm-hmm.
She can't surrender her identity in the narrative that men make up. And she should always be so confident and so clear in who she is, who her mother is, who her grandmother is, and what her creation story is. And she should make no apology, and she should not ask for permission. And she is in control of her body. She's in control of her destiny. And she's also responsible. And this is real big for me as a clan mother. I'm responsible to the 7 generations that we don't see yet. And we hear that kind of philosophy redundantly in Haudenosaunee stories, the Hadigusaduge, the faces we don't see yet. And so what we do now, this day, as women and as mothers, will certainly affect our grandchildren, our great-great-grandchildren, 7 generations down the line. And I totally lost sight of the question, Makasha.
Yeah, it was, what are steps young women can take to stand in our power and elevate mother law?
Well, that's part of the elevation, and
Mm-hmm.
she should never go anywhere without her water.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because you can't appreciate water unless you don't have any. And you don't know what it's like to be thirsty until you have no water. And that's why, Hologo, we put our young people in states of deprivation for an integrated number of days, from 1 to 4 days. And you know what it's like. We put you out in the woods, right, Makasha?
Yeah.
No food, no water, sometimes no sleep, no human contact. You're out in the darkness.
For 4 days.
for 4 days, and you have to contend with those things. You had to deal with the cold, you had to deal with the heat, you know, and you had to deal with yourself. And I think that's part of standing in your own power, is to recognize why you were born into this world. And that's the importance of Ohologo, is that we try and help young people navigate the schematics of why they were born and what their purpose is, because there's no greater betrayal to oneself when you're living a life that betrays your purpose. So it helps when you're a young adolescent teen to know what your purpose is in this life, and to discover it early. And how do you discover purpose? What is it that you love? What makes you happy? And then pursue it, you know. And to also be awoke to the moments when Mother Earth or creation herself is talking to you. And so when the door shuts on your face sometimes, don't feel bad, because it's probably a pretty good reason why it did, and that you know, you're destined to be someplace else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree. And I for sure know what it's like to go without any food or water. And yeah, and when I tell people that, like, that doesn't exactly scare them as much as when I tell them that, like, what is hard about it is that you have to stay with yourself and your thoughts, and for 4 whole days with no contact and nothing else to distract you, and staying in one spot just with your thoughts and with yourself. And so, like, that's what's hard nowadays, I feel like, because everything's moving so fast and everything's virtual, and we're not enough with, like, with outside with ourselves. And yeah, and I think it's important to take that time. And yeah, I totally agree, like, that's how we gain to, like, love ourselves and grow and know what you want, and, like, yeah, know what you want in your life.
Mm.
um and yeah, so how do we get our communities to include us in their decision making?
Show up. That's the best answer that I can possibly give you, is to show up. The world is run by people who show up. And so
Mhm.
to be, you can't stay at home and wait for them to come look for you and say, can you include, you know, how come you didn't include me? Well, you know, the simplicity of it is, if you're genuinely interested and really care in a particular issue like water, then when decisions are being made about it, you should show up. And I think that's the mistake of our generation, is the elders are sitting there waiting for the young people to show up, and the young people are sitting there waiting for the elders to call them, and there's nothing in between. And you know, so if you start early to begin to find something you love and you truly care about, and willing to have the courage to stand up for it, then you need to show up.
Mhm. Yeah,
It's like ceremony, you know, it, ceremony at the lawn house, you know, you ain't going to learn anything unless you show up. And you know, it's that kind of school, that kind of schooling and teaching, that wisdom is imparted to those that show up, sit and listen. And then eventually you arrive at the moment where wisdom becomes your guiding compass, and then you begin to know more and more. But um if you sit and wait and somebody else to do it for you, it'll never get done.
Mhm. I totally agree with you. Just, and sometimes, like, it seems like it's hard to show up, but it's really, like, if you're passionate and if you want to be there, then you will. And, like, yeah, you have to do it yourself, because, like, nobody's going to do it for you. Nobody can go in your place and speak your words and speak your mind. So, like, I feel that in the way, like, that I, like, fought Nestle. and like raised awareness in my community, because I felt like nobody else is going to do this and it's my responsibility, and it's not going to, and nobody else can really take my place as a young woman and know what I know, and like, I guess, like, do it in the time that at that time. So I was just like, I have to do this. And it seemed crazy, like, knowing, looking back at what exactly happened, like, during those times and that day, and the protest, and going there, and reading them the cease and desist letter. Like, all of those actions just kind of lined up. Like, it was kind of effortless, but like, kind of, I had to put in the effort, but at the same time, like, it was really crazy how things fell into place. And I think that's speaking to your, how we are like destined to do certain things. And so, um like, what you're bound to do and what you want to do, like, just do it, and everything will fall into place as it should.
Mhm. Well, that's
So,
the wisdom. That's the wisdom, Akasha, is that when the time is right and when you're listening to what the universe is saying to you, it should be effortless.
mhm.
But if you're struggling and things aren't lining up, then you have to step back for a little bit and realign yourself. But when things fall into place effortlessly, you're on the right track.
Mhm. Yeah, I totally agree. And it was definitely crazy time. Um so water is officially on the stock of, let me start that over again. Water is officially a stock on Wall Street and is being traded as a commodity. How do we enforce mother law and stop this?
Um, that's a tough question for me because I don't hang out in those kind of Wall Street kind of places and or hang out
Mm-hmm.
with them kind of people.
Yeah.
But the reality is it's already been prophesized that we're going to have to buy water, and that's what we do. And because of the expedited way that all our water, our freshwater source is becoming polluted, and there's only, you look at other countries, they're all struggling for water. Just look at Pine Ridge, they're struggling for water.
Mm-hmm.
My good friend Barb Poley out in Hopi country, they're struggling for water. I think being in Canada, James Bay is probably one of the last strongholds for clean fresh water, but at the rate we're polluting everything, there will be very little left. So what do you do? Well, you got to educate yourself about water, how to purify water, how to be near water, how to um, make cisterns. We need water. At the end of the day, we need good, clean drinking water. But as far as stopping it on the market, well, I don't know. I don't think I have the answer for that. But if you want to exert mother law, then again, you have to show up. You have to issue a letter. But it was predicted there was going to be water wars, and that is probably the big sign saying that it's here. It's here, and get ready. So I'm not a legal mind. It would be of interest for all of us to contact somebody who's a lawyer to be able to infiltrate that kind of system and find out who's at the top, and to say where that's against natural law, that's against mother law to
Mm-hmm.
commoditize water.
Yeah, I agree. Um and it is scary. Like, it means that, like, it's being traded and being sold, and is at the same value as oil and gas. So it's really scary at that point, because we know what happens when companies are fighting for oil and gas. we know how that looks because we can see all of these protests. We can see Standing Rock, what happened there. So that's like the level of concern that I have, is that we're going to be, if it's always reaching the same level and being traded as the same amount as oil and gas. So that means that people, like, they don't think that it's a human right to have water, and that we are going to have to buy it and bottle it, and they're going to be taking it from from a lot of from a lot of places, like how they treat indigenous communities with oil and gas. And we can see that from like all over the world, basically from Brazil to
Mhm.
Alberta, um, and other places in South Dakota. So yeah, it's definitely scary. And knowing that we are in a time of where it's like all of our water, most of our water is really polluted. And um, yeah, it's just it's just a really scary reality that has officially um, is now a stock on Wall Street. And it just makes me think how much we need to stand in our power, and we need to reinforce mother law, because that's what it is. Is also like mother law is also like water. um, and and speaking up as Haudenosaunee people and indigenous peoples, and asserting our sovereignty, like those are all ways that we can protect our water and protect our future generations.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
it's definitely a desecration, you know, it's like it's when you have to sell water, you're pretty much selling your mother too. And we know that you know, there's no honor left in humanity when you get to the point that things that is so generously and readily given is now being, I guess, prostituted, uh, because everything's for sale, right? And I think that's going to be the work of your generation, to stand in your power, stand under mother law, and be able to not allow water to be privatized.
mhm, yeah. So you guys hear that, all our audience? We have to stand in our power and exert our sovereignty and make sure that we have a future for our future generations. And I think it speaks really well to like our next guest, who is doing who are who is doing an action that we can all participate in. But yeah, if any of our viewers have any questions for um, Clan Mother Louise, please, yeah, ask them now. And Louise, do you have any more um, last words?
Last words. I guess the basic philosophy is less means more. And you knew that in your fast, Makasha, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you were in a state of deprivation without water or food, you suddenly started to appreciate, right? And appreciation comes from not having. So with no water, and to imagine yourself not being able to bathe, wash your clothes, brush your teeth, to cook your food, and if there's no water, you can't imagine what that's like until you're there. So we take for granted what we readily have, like taking 10-minute showers when we should only be taking 2-minute showers. Like, we have to treat it preciously, and it will run out if we keep using it at the same rate that we are doing it now, because there's nothing in the world that can't run without water. So for me, less is more. The less you use, the more that you will value it,
Mm-hmm.
and have gratitude for it. And to always, in any ceremony, to always make sure that you acknowledge it, like the Ahondagaliwadekwa. You know, it's the second thing, well, the third thing that we actually acknowledge in the opening address. So Onaga Sunwa. Doya Tinhuala, the Jiniguadala Suyo, Jisego Ganigio, the Wanagatsoyans, Ayuguahat, the Nawaste. So for me, that's just my last words. To always have gratitude for those mother giving things like water, and to hold it in high regard.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's one takeaway from this talk, is that we need to give thanks, to remember to give thanks every single day, because those are original instructions to give thanks. And when we're giving thanks, we're also like talking to the spirit, and to remember that spirit, that the water has a spirit, and it has emotion, and it has everything that we have from me and you, and that you feel it feels. And so like remember to like give thanks, or talk to it if you're going to drink it, and say like thank you. Or if you have any problems, that's also like a healing entity too. If there's like, you can like talk to it and treat it as a friend and build a relationship. And I think that we need to build back our relationship with our waters. Um, so, Nyawe, and if there's no questions, we can watch a video. But thank you so much, Louise, for joining us. And
Yeah, Mikasha, I just wanted to add two things real quick, is that in our creation story, there's that part in the story, and you probably remember this, is where Sky Woman is instructed by Sky Chief to go to the river and take a vessel with her to get water.
Yeah.
And on her way back, she bumps into the lacrosse player, and she gives him water. So for me, that story right there sets into motion her responsibility with water. And as a woman and as a mother to be, she's the one that quenches our thirst. And so he can't play the game unless he can quench his thirst. And she holds the vessel that has the water. So for me, that clearly states symbolically our responsibility to water, and why it's vested in the women. And there was another thought that I had too, but I lost it. So that's my old age speaking out. You know, at the end of the day is, you know, we can't live without it.
Yeah, I agree. And that's a story that is before Sky Woman even fell. And so it's like, so people know that there's a whole story before even like Sky Woman fell. And it's really interesting. And if there's any like resources where people can read that, do you know where that story is?
Oh, you can Google it. It's everywhere.
Okay. All right. I'm not too sure. Like, I never seen it anywhere.
That particular the story before she fell, you can find in creation story. You can check with Kevin White, who's a prov over at on Toronto University. He has like 32 different versions of the creation story, but it's definitely in there. And I don't know if Fenton has something out there, but I wouldn't trust his as much as I would John Arthur Gibson, who was an Onondaga chief, who wrote a thorough version of it. So it exists, it's out there, but I'm pretty sure you can also find it online somewhere in English, but you know, you always lose in the translation. So who else is there? Oh, there's quite a few people, probably. I'm sure there's some kind of literature explaining that, but I just know it by heart.
Yeah, I definitely like know it just from going to a hologo, and we say it so many times because there's so many things that we can take from the creation story and apply them in our real life, like giving thanks and knowing that we need to take responsibility to our water, and so many other things. But it's definitely good to know the whole creation story so we can apply those teachings into our everyday life. Yeah, so I think that like wraps up our little discussion, and I wanted to thank you so much for joining us and teaching not only me and refreshing my mind, but also our audience, and any of our viewers who will be watching this afterwards. And
thank you. I'm honored to have been here tonight, and you're doing a great job, and you have my support.
thank you so much. That means a lot.
Okay.
Yeah, you can stay on and watch Marianne's video if you like. And if there's any questions for you, I'll get back to you and answer and write you an email if you decide to leave at any point.
Okay, sure. Thank you, Makasha.
Thank you.
Bye.
Ona. So now we have we're going to shoot a video about All Nations Grand River Water Walk in order to help introduce our next guest. So let's watch it.
When we start up every morning, that's the special part, is when you're first being connected with everything in creation and everything's waking up. You feel that.
Why do we start at 3 or 4 in the morning?
If we're up at 3 and we're walking, we actually are still walking in the night. And so we are going to be paying attention to the awakening of life. You know, you'll start to hear the frogs and the bullfrogs, and there's an order to the birds. Part of the teaching is what you don't know, you won't protect. What you do know, you will protect. So if you aren't aware of what also is in the watershed, what other life, you're not in relationship to it, so you won't protect it.
When I first came up with the idea to do the walk, I thought it was just going to be 1 year. Then I met Josephine up north, and she said, you have to do it for 3 more years. I said, okay. We started getting more and more people involved, non-Aboriginal women. And so I mentioned that to Josephine, and I said, we're going to do this Grand River Water Walk, but my helpers are all non-Indigenous. And she said, good. She said, all two-legged have to walk for the water.
Doing something simple like this is very restorative, and there's hope that the water can heal, that we can heal.
What are your impressions of the water?
When you're walking through a city, how heavy that pail was to carry. And even if it was just a short distance, that pail seemed to be carrying so much weight. I wasn't aware at the time what it was until we then moved out of the city, out of the towns, and into the country, and how much lighter that pail felt.
Last year, when we walked in Chemical Valley, below Sarnia and Windsor, where they had all the petrol, the water, like she was saying, is very, very heavy, and many of the people were being affected by the toxins.
I was thinking, how does the water feel? We changed their way of moving with dams.
The nuclear power plant.
All of those things, they've changed. And not just the water, but everything around it. All of the, like blue herons and all of the birds that live around it, all the medicines and the fish, how do they feel? and they have to live in their world that's totally been changed.
In the moments when it's hard, what keeps you going?
The water. That's what keeps me going. I think about it. And I'm always talking to it. As we're going down, we'll get you through safely.
Be aware of what you're putting back into the water you're using, how you're using it, how much you're using, where it's ending up. 1 foot in front of the others is kind of the whole thing that the walk is about, right? In our relations, in progress.
You might hand off the pail and put it back down, offer gratitude. You put the grandfather stone down, it's back, gratitude. So you're constantly involved in an expression of gratitude for the water. And to me, the practice of being grateful for water, not just one time, but every time I'm in touch with water, has increased my awareness.
Can you take it?
Back on you.
Welcome back, everybody, from that amazing video. And Marianne is such a wonderful spirit and soul, and she's doing amazing work, carrying on the tradition from the late water walker who has passed on her traditions and her teachings onto Marianne, who now carries the copper pail and continuing her work. And now she's working and walking for the Grand River, which is something that we can all join and that we can all participate in because it's not super far. And also we can donate and help in different various ways. And we're going to be talking about that. But I want to let you know that was busy tonight teaching youth and young adults, so she couldn't make the live tonight. So we're having a pre-recorded session where she shared wonderful knowledge, and it's going to be just like she was going to be here. So let's take a look at that, and I'll see you afterwards. Hello, everybody. Our guest today is Marianne Caibaiosai. She's an Anishinaabe lead water walker of All Nations Grand River Water Walk. Marianne is an Ojibwe Anishinaabekwe Bear Clan from Wikwemekong, unceded territory, Matrilineal Island. She carries a life teachings passed from Anishinaabe elders, ceremonial and traditional leaders. She also helps in her community as a counselor and within circle as a knowledge keeper. In 2017, she was given a copper pail and the teachings and the blessings from the late Josephine Mandamin, the first Anishinaabe water walker. Marianne is honored to continue her work to walk, pray for and raise awareness for the sacredness of the water. In September 2021, the Grand River Water Walkers will complete the 4-year ceremonial commitment for the Grand River. However, there's much more work to do for the waters. In addition, traditional Anishinaabe teachings, she carries a Master's of Social Work, in Indigenous field of Study degree from Wilfrid Laurier University, and has a Bachelor's of First Nations and Aboriginal Counseling degree from Brandon University. She is also a PhD candidate Indigenous Studies program at Trent University. She continues to speak for the waters when she is asked because she is life. And without the spirit of water, we would not be here. So I'd like to introduce Marianne. And if you'd like to introduce yourself in your language, you can do that if you'd like.
Okay, Miigwech, thank you for this invitation to come and speak with you. Bojo, Nodernikwe and Dishnakaz, Makwadodem. Wikwam Kong, Menadom and the Sing and Donjiba. Ojibwe Anishinaabekwe, Meanwhile, Nijomadewen Endow. Peterborough Megwa and Dida. Ikanamagasit Endow. So my English name is Marianne Caibaiosai, and I'm Bear Clan from Wikwamacong on Cedar Territory. My spirit name is Nodanikwe, which is Wind Spirit Woman. And I'm a student of learning in Trent University, but I'm also learning every day. So it's an ongoing process, and it's particularly about the water.
Yeah, I think we are all learning every day, especially on the show every week, about like how water can be intertwined and is connected to all things like health and our rights and everything in between. It's all really interconnected. So can you tell us what inspired you to lead All Nations Grand River Water Walk?
Absolutely. So the year before I started that journey, I had walked with Josephine Ba, and it was her last water walk, as it turned out. And they had walked from the west to the east. They finished in Matane, Quebec, and they had started the walk from the furthermost corner of Lake Superior. And it was about a 3-month walk altogether. I started halfway and joined up with one of my sisters, and it was just an incredible experience. Like, there's really nothing like it in terms of supporting the water, and it was transformative in many ways. And at the end of that walk, Josephine, at our ceremony, she gave me there's a sacred item that goes into the pail, and she gave me that to take care of. And so I immediately asked her, does this mean I'm supposed to walk? And she said, you will know. And so that said, I was in Kitchener-Waterloo at the time, and I had just finished getting my my master's. I met with one of the women in KW at the time, who I was kind of having a conversation, like, what should I do next? And she said, well, what did you do last year? That I walked for the water with Josephine. And she says, well, you need to walk for the Grand River. She needs help. Wow. And so I did. And shortly after that, I got a pail from one of the men in the community. It wasn't necessarily, it was the same idea. Like, I don't know what's this for, right? And so I took that and the other sacred item, and I thought about it for quite some time. And of course, heeded this elder's advice to walk for the water, and that's how it started.
Wow. So how long has it taken you to walk for the Grand River?
So what happened was I started thinking about it. I started talking about it, and I would meet with different people with a real excitement, right? Because I just decided, okay, this is what I'm going to do. It's just a matter of when. And what happened was I ended up meeting with a number of non-Indigenous women who were very excited about this whole idea of walking for the Grand River. But I had to let them know it's not just a walk, it's a ceremony. And there's a lot involved in the ceremony. You're praying, you're singing, you're speaking for the water, you're putting the thoughts for the water into your mind and your heart when you're doing this. And so at first I wasn't sure how that would go over with Josephine Ba. At that time I connected with her, and she was guiding me. And she said, I said, there's some of the women that want to walk and help me organize this they're not Anishinaabe women. And she said, that's okay. Everyone has to help the water. Everyone has to walk for the water. Everyone uses water. And so I was really struck by that, in terms of, what lessons, what she have left with me.
Yeah.
Is that we all water.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think that we had the same idea here when we were fighting. Nestle and I organized a awareness protest day, and it was open to everybody to run and have a message to Nestle to stop taking our aquifer water. And we ran from the school to the medicine house. So, and there was walkers too, but it was open like to everybody because we're all fighting for the same thing, because we all need water, and we can use help from our allies. And yeah, I totally agree. So, like, what does a day on the walk look like?
Okay, so typically we're on the road by 3:00 in the morning. It's an early morning start. And when I was walking with Josephine, she had us on the road by 2:00, and so we got up early. And the reason she said that we would do that was reasons. For one thing, we're avoiding all of this is like also an opportunity to connect with creation. Nothing else is awake then. Like we're the only two-leggeds out at that time of the morning, but it gave us and all the walkers an opportunity to hear the crickets, the frogs, the bees, all the wee beings in creation, and there was always a pattern, to the sound of the birds. I think the robin was always and blue and crows and red-winged blackbirds. There always seemed to be a set pattern. And when you're out there at that time of the day, you start recognizing that pattern. You start saying, "Wow, they sound the same chorus of singers, right? Of women ones, and they all have that same routine." And then we got to see the stars, which is something that's very rare. Especially living in urban areas, and but this was the time to just go up and look at the sky and see the stars, connect with the star beings, and then to watch the sunrise. It's just incredible. But that time, that's kind of etches in your memory of what the sun looks like without the buildings in between. And so that's how a typical day would start. And if we had helpers, they would go out and they would find us breakfast or coffee, and they would deliver it to us as we were walking. So typically what happened was we would actually smudge first. That was always the first thing. We would smudge, we would put down our sema, our tobacco, and then we just start walking. So of course the first day was always the gathering up of the water in the pail. So depending on what direction we're going. So this year we're starting at the source, which is up in Dundalk, north of Kitchener-Waterloo by about 2 hours. And so what we do is we gather up the pail. We have a ceremony to start. Then we pick up the water, and then we start walking. And we don't stop. The idea is that we just keep carrying that pail until we finish for the end of the day. Or if there's a break in between, we stop. But we don't stop at intersections. We just keep going. So normally there's a woman who's carrying the pail, and then there's a man carrying the eagle staff. And the eagle staff represents a vision. So the man is there to protect the water. He's there to protect the woman, to make sure we're safe and that we're taking a good path forward. And the woman never looks behind her when they're carrying the pail. And the idea with Josephine that she said was that look straight ahead. We always want the water to flow ahead of us. that it's always flowing and we don't stop. So the significance of that stopping with the pail is that we don't want the water to ever stop flowing.
Yeah.
You know, so there's teachings within the whole, you know, how it's done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's pretty powerful. And
Yeah.
then we decide we're guided. We check our route out. We decide which route we're going to be following, and if there's a road closure or heaven forbid an accident, then we just try to find a route around it. We can't stop and start watching. We have to just keep going.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have a number of people that help us with that. We have one of those little it's a little GPS attached to the pail, so it tracks us during the walk, and we link that up to our site, and people can watch us on their computers.
Oh wow.
To see where we are. If they want to join us for the day or 2 days,
Yeah.
they can see where we are.
What is that site called?
It's the All Nations Grand River Water Walk.
Okay.
And so on there we have the protocols. We have the maps laid out for that particular walk, and we have instructions. Like there's protocols.
Mm-hmm.
For example, we tell people this isn't a walk. It's not a social event.
Mm-hmm.
It's a ceremony, and so we tell people that are wanting to come, the women, that it's expected to wear a long skirt or encouraged to wear a skirt, unless
Mm-hmm.
you don't feel comfortable. If you're don't see yourself that way, then you wear whatever
Mm-hmm.
ceremonial clothing you can.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so we have that list all there of what to expect from the walk.
Yeah, that's important. So if people wanted to join you, or how would, since are you already done the All Nations Grand River Water Walk?
No, we have one more this year. This year
Okay.
it's year 4.
Oh yeah.
And we're typically we would start it in June, because that's when the water starts flowing the heaviest. But because of COVID last year, we weren't sure what to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so we decided to just hold it in September, when things seem to have ebbed down a little bit. And so if that's happening again this year, we're going to aim for the same day, the same time frame, probably September. And people can get a hold of us. We also have a Facebook site.
Okay.
And people can send messages there, or they can message on our website. I'm interested in walking. So
Okay.
if you're interested in walking, there's 4 walkers, and then there's walkers who can just come in for the day or the afternoon, you know, or the morning, I should say.
Yeah. And so if someone wanted to be a core walker, where do they sleep at night? Like, how does that work?
Oh yes.
Sleeping arrangements.
So back to your question about how the day looks.
Mm-hmm.
So we typically start around 3, and then we finish maybe 2:00 in the afternoon. So
Yeah.
it's not a full day. It all depends what the weather is like, what's happening that day, how people are feeling. And then what we do a lot of fundraising, and we'll be starting that pretty soon. And that fundraising goes to pay for accommodations.
Okay.
So initially, when I talked earlier about our allies supporting us, a lot of the allies insisted that rather than us camping and sleeping on the cold earth and then having to get on the road by 3:00, they insisted, you know, we'll raise enough money so you can stay in accommodations.
Mm-hmm.
So typically, if people are interested in being core walkers, the fundraising we do is to raise accommodation, gas money, food for the core walkers, and other people who come. They can bring their food. Or, you know, obviously we won't turn them away from our meals. But.
Mm-hmm. So how would people be able to donate if they wanted to donate to the Grand River Water Walk?
It's actually all on the website as well. There's a link to there's a page that talks about the protocols. There's one that talks about fundraising, donations. You can contribute either financially, you can support a fundraiser. Mm-hmm. You know, one of the women raised money with porridge breakfast. And, you know, there's other ways of, one woman wants to do an online concert this year. I received an email for that already, so that's pretty exciting.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need all the support that we can get. So if any of our viewers want to donate, head to their website, and so you'll be able to donate. Or if you want to participate, you can also find out that information there. Yeah, and so we heard the water walkers say that the water is heavier to carry in the cities, along with Chemical Valley. Why do you think that was?
Well, you know how water has spirit, right? And it feels. And when we were walking in through some of the more built-up areas, the water felt heavy because we felt heavy. The people carrying the pail were also under a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety. We often had people honking at us. We had people yelling at us, and all those things we feel. And so it goes into the pail. That's that part. And then through Chemical Valley, of course, no one really wanted to walk through there. It's toxic. And so anything that's in the air, toxins can be, in the air, on the wind. And so we found that too in areas that had windmills, that the staff got really heavy, and so did the pail. There was just a combination of toxins or things that should not be there, that typically aren't around water, naturally, and so the pail. That's when we would find that those sacred items would get really heavy. So a lot of it had to do with what we're carrying. So that's one of the ideas why we smudge. We try to keep a smudge in every car. So when you're feeling anxious, you can go and lighten your load, so you don't put it back in the pail, because it's all about the water. Yeah. One of the things Josephine Bath always talked about. But it's not about you; it's about the water.
Yeah, that's a strong teaching. How do we protect the ones who are protecting the water?
Well, this is the challenge, right? So we, of course, during the walk, the man carrying the staff is supposed to protect the water. I think more people walking would help protect the water. More awareness about water walks happening would protect the water, would protect the walkers. And then making sure that when you know what's going on, that you can support. You don't have to go flying past in your vehicles, right? And yelling at us, and because everything like that impacts the safety of and the health and the well-being of the women carrying the pail. And also, we have medicines, right, like cedar, and some women were putting cedar in their shoes. And but there's other. If you're not actually part of the walk, there are those other ways of contributing support, praying for us. That's the other thing. We ask people, if you can't come, you can pray for us. Send those positive thoughts to us during the walk, so that we are safe.
Yeah, I encourage any youth who are watching, or any people who are like, what can we do? I feel like I'm not doing enough, and I hear that all the time, that people don't know what to do. They don't know how to support. But this is one way that you can support, and you can actively do something. And you can pray, you can join them, you can donate, you can do all of these things, and to help the water walkers, because it's so important that we raise awareness for our water, especially the Grand River, because it's taking such a beating from all of the cities all around. They're pouring sewage into there. There's 20 something sewage pipelines that are pouring into the Grand River, and they are careless with what goes into the water. They think it's just a dumping ground, and we're having more complaints from even our water people here our water treatment plant people who have a filtration for the water, but it's going up over the years. They're finding more drugs, more needles, more things that are illicit, like illicit drugs, and it's not being taken care of. And that's what we need to raise awareness for, is that people need to take care of our river, of our streams, of our water bodies, even the ones that we can't see, like our aquifers. So we need to take care of all of our water, because this, like, we can't boil and we can't like clean and when it to be pure like it was before it was untouched. You can't get it back to that state. So it's very important that we take care of our water and that we come together for our water, because water is life. Without water, nothing can live with outside. Like the grass can't live, the trees, the birds, the foxes, the everything. It simply cannot live, and that's including us. So I think it's definitely common knowledge that we should take care of our water. And this is one way that we can do it around these parts. So yeah, if you wanted to add anything, I know that grandmother Josephine Ba would had taught you a lot of things. Is there any more teachings that you would like to pass on to our viewers?
I think what she was really guided by her spirit, right?
Mm-hmm.
In doing this work. She was initially asked by someone in her lodge, because they were talking about what's happening to the earth, Mother Earth. And so they were asked, well, what will you do? And that was what she said, I'll walk for the water. And so I think what was powerful was that everyone has to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And that she responds to us. The water responds to us. She talked about how when people are sick, you know how that feels when you are sick and you're in bed, and even now with COVID, we can't see people. How that feels when someone says your name, when someone says, how are you? When someone says, I love you, I'd like to help you, how can I help you? And they feed you, and they give you water, and they sing to you, perhaps. How does that feel? You feel nurtured, you feel loved, you feel taken care of, and you start to heal. And that's what she was saying. That's how the water feels. Because the water is a living being. It's not just there. It's always flowing, and it's full of spirit. And like you were saying, it feeds everything underneath the water, all of the turtles, the snakes, and all those beautiful beings, fish. And then it's feeding all of the animals. The deer go down there to drink. And if the water's poisonous, what happens to them? What happens to everything that lands on the water if the water is sick? And so, of course, we know the cycle, right? The scientific cycle. What goes up comes down. And if the water is poison, it's just going to come down and like acid rain. Then everything's affected.
Yeah.
And so that it's a very painful topic, because we saw a lot of wildlife on our last walk last year, and it was so sad, that and there's nothing you can do about it. We just put tobacco down on them, sang songs and prayers for them. But this is how the water also looks. If you go to those areas that are stagnant, it's not even moving. And so that's really important to remember. I guess I like that teaching too, about you're interacting. Give back to the water, because a lot of people don't even, they just say, oh, I want to go for a walk and sit by the water and read a book. It's nice to do that, but it's also good to acknowledge the water and thank the water for all she's giving us. Reciprocity, right? reciprocity, have a relationship with the water, and give something back, like all of creation. Don't just take it, but give back somehow with love, with songs, and with prayers. Those are the ways. And we have our water ceremony once a month in Kitchener-Waterloo. And I left that behind. I gave the teachings to some of the women, so they're keeping it going. But then, we can still do that anywhere we are.
Yeah.
Go and speak to her.
Yeah,
So-
I definitely agree with you. And I think it's important that we, like what you said, is imagine like how sick it feels because like we know what it's like to be sick. And so we can imagine that on the water, and you can imagine also I was thinking about what it feels like to be like in plastic bottles and to be like shipped in the warehouse. And if it's a living spirit like we are, then we can relate to it like being stuck in the house all day, or like relate to it like being in jail. Like you can relate to the water in those ways because it's a spirit just like us. And how would you like to be treated, and how would you like to be talked to, especially if you're going through a really hard time? Yeah, I definitely think that's important to remember. Yeah, so I guess if you want to have any last words.
I think it's really important to get the children involved. The youth, to bring them to the water. And so we found along that route, along the Grand River, that the people who had access to the river were those with privilege, or they're farmers, or their golf courses, industry, and the parks. It was really hard time. It was really challenging to actually get access to parks where you can actually just go by the water. You'd be surprised how hard it was to get to the water. And to think that our people relied on that exclusively for travel, right? In our canoes, and how it was part of our existence. And now we can't even get there, or we don't even have water. And
Exactly.
Yeah. So I think it's important to educate, and bring the children. We had the number of children from Six Nations behind us the second year. They walked behind us. They met us at I think it was 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning. It was still dark out, and I think there were 8 or 9 children with their mothers, and it was beautiful. They just walked behind us.
Yeah, I would love to join you and bring my nieces. Yeah, I think, I would love to join you anyways. And hopefully more people would love to join you, like our viewers. We can have more help. But thank you so much for sharing all your knowledge. And I think it's so important of what you shared. And I agree with you on everything. And I just really hope that you get more support, and that more people will join you, and that for people, and get them thinking about water, whether they're native or not native, because water is life and it affects us all. So Nyawe.
Miigwech.
And I'll let you know if we have any questions from our viewers for you.
Okay.
And we'll put the website of the Facebook and the website of the Grand River Water Walkers on our post when we post the live.
Okay, fantastic.
Okay. Yeah, and I'll get back to you if we have any questions from my viewers.
Okay. And
did I want to what?
Did you see the photographs from the presentation?
I don't think so. I think we can.
I've been playing them the whole time.
Oh, okay.
Just in the background.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just matching them up to what you've been saying, Marianne.
Oh, okay.
Cool.
Great. Yeah, I can't see that. I only see the Zoom. So thankful for Hannah. She has been showing our viewers all that. Okay. Well, thank you so much. Hi, now we're going to watch a digital story which features Josephine Ba.
As women, we are carriers of the water. We carry life for the people. A wise Ogima, a chief, told us in the lodge that an ounce of water would cost more than an ounce of gold by 2030. I wondered, how can I get people to stop polluting the water and start respecting her? I had to speak up for the water. So, I began walking around the 5 Great Lakes with women from the 4 directions of North America. We used copper pails to carry the water. They can clean, heal, and amplify our prayers for the water. Over time, others joined the walk. When we got tired, we said, "Nika chichige onje naga." I will do it for the water. It's our responsibility to raise awareness so we can turn things around. The generations to come will ask, what did my grandparents do? You've heard of walk the talk. This is why I walk.
We need a miracle, spirit of the ghost dance. Light up this prayer grass in my hand, take it to the most high. Yeah. We need a blessing tonight, stand by our side, side as we fight. Screaming out, water is life, a miracle, spirit of the ghost dance. Light up this prayer grass in my hand, take it to the most high. Yeah. We need a blessing tonight, stand by our side, side as we fight. Screaming out, water is life.
Hey yo, all around the world, my sisters and my brothers hurt. So let's hope this hurt for the heartbeat of Mother Earth. I say a prayer.
I just think, yeah, it's a bit like she's asking some questions in the video.
Okay, I'll just go back on.
Oh, you're on.
Okay. Hi, welcome back, everybody. Thank you so much for our viewers for staying and listening to our wise elders like Louise, Bear, and Marianne. They are real powerhouse women, and they're making a huge difference in the world, and they're both doing so much. And Louise is doing so much for our youth, and she's already helped hundreds and hundreds of youth going through Ohologo, teaching and coming on here to educate us. And it's just, and same with Mary Ann. She's walked so many miles around the Great Lakes and the Grand River. They're both just completely amazing women working for the water and the people. And that's what I aspire to do, is work for the water and the people. But thank you so much for listening to them. And that's it for tonight's show. Tune in next week for a new episode on access to clean water here at Six Nations and Indigenous communities in British Columbia. Don't forget to follow us on our social media platforms like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube channel and check out our brand new website in order to stay updated on our show and our project. Thank you so much, guys, for staying, and I hope that you have a great day and a great rest of your week. Ona. Are we done?
Well, water catches flame, water catches flame, water catches flame, my oh my, hey hey, oh ho, oh please don't say no. Tell me who will save our waters, save them for our great granddaughters, save them before all is dead and done.
... is